All right, good morning, everyone. It's significantly past time to start, so we should probably start. Nice to see everybody out there this morning. Got a full house and a lot of folks still coming in. And so because of that, I'm going to go ahead and just start with some introductory comments. I do have an article for those of you who are not faint of heart. And this article is on, Tyler, can you turn me down a little bit? I'm a little loud. All right. There you go. That's pretty good. This article is basically some more information on the formation of DNA, and it talks about mutations, and it talks about the impossibility of certain mutations, and it's kind of written from a scientific viewpoint. I got this article sometime back, and I put it in my notes for my class. It comes from a website called Answers in Genesis, and it's fantastic. If you go to that website, there's a lot of really good things on there. There's stuff on there that is for like the layperson to read, but then there's also stuff on there for scientists, like peer-reviewed journal types of things. So you can get all kinds of things on there. And this is an article on that. I have 10 copies with me, so would somebody like to pass these out? Perfect. So if you hold up your hand, if you want those, go ahead and put up your hand, and we'll get you some copies. If for whatever reason we don't have enough copies today, just give me your email, and I will email these to you. So they're pretty easy to get to you, and it's really kind of fascinating, what is going on scientifically. This particular article goes through some mutations of fly wings, how it happens, talks a little bit about genes that are the mother and father chromosomes and why that's healthy, and what happens when you have a mutation when you don't have both, how that happens and what the effects are, and it just really kind of goes in depth on that. So that's a good article for you if you're interested in going deeper. Okay. For those who haven't been here before, or even if you have, we're studying Christian evidences, and we've talked about a number of things. Last week, we continued to go over the 7 proofs for the existence of God. So we finished that up, and now we're going to go into the next topic in the book, chapter 3, which is it one God? Is it a multiple of gods? Or is it no God? But before we get started, let's go ahead and have a prayer. Dear Father, we're so grateful that we have this time to come and to study and to understand more about your great creation and your word. God, so much has been revealed to us in both, and we have to take the time to stop and understand who you are. And God, today as we do that, we ask that we do so with open minds, that we can continue to stretch ourselves and to see how magnificent and how wonderful you truly are. God, many times we overlook so many things, both in the Word and in nature, that just show how detailed that you have done everything. And when we do stop to see in a more deep manner, we understand a little bit more about who you are. Help us this day as we study to do exactly that, and then help us to use this to talk to others and help others see exactly who you are. God, thank you for your Son, who was the exact image of you, who helps us understand exactly who you are, and we just ask that we continue to emulate him in our lives. This is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen. Okay, so as we're studying, and we looked at 7 proofs for the existence of God, and we said that the last one up there, no God, we know that that's just not true. And we know that for a number of reasons that we already talked about. But we said that the creation, and such a magnificent and detailed creation, requires a creator. You're not going to get that by accident. We showed the math last time. It just can't happen. A 10 to the 50th power is considered impossible. And the Yale professor had said that the formation of one E. coli was like 10 to the 100 million power, right? And so you're talking about factor upon factor upon factor beyond impossibility. So the complexity of the creation shows us that it requires a creator, and we know who that is. That's why we're all here this morning. In the book, as you read through the book, it talks about how when you study this, and this is what it's very interesting, when you continue to study in any field, whether it's mathematics or science, what you find is as you go deeper and deeper into that study, the more and more you learn, the more and more you know that you don't know. You know, I remember taking, like just mathematics in high school and going through algebra and thinking about, well, where did this equation come from? And then going on to college and start looking at calculus. That's where that came from. And then going beyond that, look at differential equations. That's where that came from, right? Into a place where I don't even understand it anymore, and they're still going, layers and layers and layers deep, right? That's exactly the way it is with nature. If you look at the atom, right, and then the atom's made up of parts. And then those parts are made up of parts. And things that we can't even see or even devise ways of understanding. And that's the way it is with all things that God has created. Somewhere down deep, there's just something we cannot understand. We're just not able to do that, right? God's ways are above our ways. His thoughts are above our thoughts. And that's the way it works. He continues to be just beyond our grasp. Right, just beyond our grasp in terms of understanding how he made the world and how it all holds together. And I think he's done that for a reason. He's done that for a reason. In the book, also, it talks about how, and I've actually experienced this for myself, the author there, Brad Harab, said, in the classes that he took, and as they got more and more complex, and as he interacted with more and more of his professors, what he found was, off the record, they would kind of acknowledge, it probably is the fact that this didn't happen by chance, right? Because the facts just add up and they stack up. And they would say off the record that many times, this could not have happened by accident. But they're not willing to acknowledge that publicly because of the things that we talked about before. Because of ideologies, because of their money source or politics or whatever it might be, many of them will not talk about it on the record. Maybe they don't even want to discredit their scientific degrees or their credibility. Okay, so as we look at this, proving the existence of God is something that's relatively new in terms of having to do, right? So what if you talked to Adam, who had walked with God, and you said, Adam, I don't think God exists? What would have Adam said? Yesterday afternoon, we were in the garden in the cool of the evening and of the morning, and we were walking there. So I don't believe you. I think there's a God, right? What about Noah, right? Noah was told by God how to build the ark, right? And you go to Noah and you say, hey, I don't think God exists. And like, well, how did this ark get here? And how did I know how to build it, right? And if you look at all the Old Testament characters, right, many of them who God talked to directly, like Abraham or Moses, and even some of the judges and the prophets, they would not have had a hard time saying that there was a God, right? They wouldn't have had a hard time at all. Matter of fact, I don't think you could have convinced them otherwise. I saw this burning bush, and it just kept burning. And, I had to take my shoes off because I was on holy ground. And, it's just something that they didn't have to deal with, right? And they would not have been challenged on the fact that there is a God, right? But how does God speak to us today? God speaks to us today through his Son, right? Let's turn to Hebrews 1, and we'll go over there just real quick, because a lot of these verses that we kind of will go over today, they're talking about some things that we understand, but then they also give us some deeper insight into how the Word actually continues to amaze us on how credible it is in terms of scientific things. So, and we'll build that as we go through the class today. Hebrews 1, 1 through 3. God, after he spoke long ago to the fathers and the prophets in many portions in many ways, in these last days has spoken to us in his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things. Through him also he made the world. And he is the radiance of his glory, the exact representation of his nature, and upholds all things by the word of his power. And when he had made purification of sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. Love that, right? God speaks to us today through his Son, who is the exact representation of who God is. You want to know who God is? You want to know this God who created the universe? Look at his Son. His Son is the exact representation. And I love this because it says that this is the way he's talking to us. But then it also goes into depth here. Somebody, I don't remember who it was, after class last week, somebody came up to me and said, we also don't know how this universe is held together. Like, there's not a way to understand, like, how atoms don't fly apart. And, all the quantum mechanics that are going on there. We don't know a lot about it. And I love it here because if you really go down and look at the original language here in verse 3, this idea of upholds, really it talks about sustains. And when it's written in the original language, this uphold is like present active, which means it's not something he did in the past. This is something that's going on all the time. It's happening right now. It's happening right now and continues to happen. And by the way, if it wasn't happening, the universe basically would fall apart, right? So not only was it created by him, but it's being sustained and it's being upheld and it's being it continues to move through the power of his word, according to Hebrews 1:3. I just think that's fantastic, right? We don't know how it happens, but yet here it sits, right? God's told us exactly how it's happened. And he's spoken all these things.